we all might need today. So, once again, hoping you're warm wherever you are. And thank you, really thank you for taking the time to join us today. Because, I mean, before we begin, I just want to acknowledge that winter means so many things to each of us, different things as well. And it can be a difficult time for many people. For some people, it's probably low energy or just a lack of motivation, or it can also mean feeling a little disconnected. Sometimes there's financial stresses. But for me personally, I find that I get quite slow when it's winter. Like everything takes me longer, so I feel quite a bit like a sloth. But just acknowledging, a lot of people might also find winter cozy and snug. So kind of like all your feelings about winter are really welcome. And wherever you're joining from today. Thanks for being here. And this Winter Wellbeing webinar is part of UOK's wider Winter Wellbeing campaign, which is all about kind of sharing practical support and community knowledge and knowing where to find support. And I think more than anything is just a reminder that, hey, winter is hard and you really don't have to do it alone. And a little bit about UOK itself, because you might be wondering, like, what's UOK? So, as like the name suggests, it's quite literally asking, "Are you okay?" And it's a partnership of local mental health support services, and the mission really is to just make sure everyone has the access that they need, they have it at the right time, and they have support that meets them where they are. So it's a partnership of mental health and well-being services, really, in Brighton Hove and East Sussex. Um, right. So before we move into the information sessions, and we've got three lovely guests with us today, but before we move to that, I'd just like to invite everyone to do something quite simple. So if you can, wherever you are, just take a moment and think of what is something you can do to just make yourself more comfortable than you currently are. So if that could be, getting yourself a nice warm drink, it could be changing the way you're sitting, or just anything that would make you feel slightly more comfortable. And if you need to go make a drink, you can do that right now. You didn't have to come prepared. So, what I'm going to do is just for 2 minutes, play some music. And it can also be that you're just sitting here enjoying the music. That's totally fine. Grab a blanket if you'd like, whatever you need to do. So we'll do that just for a couple of minutes before we begin. Sounds okay? Okay. I have one nod. Yeah, I've got my drink, which is no longer hot, unfortunately. But yeah, go ahead and let's come back in a couple of minutes. So 12 or 5 or 6. Yeah. Right. Welcome back, everybody. hopefully you are renewed people, and I'm seeing a new set of more comfortable people. Um, but once again, thanks for being here. We're very excited to share, yeah, and be together on this really dull and dreary afternoon, I suppose. Um, we'll just begin in a couple more minutes, and just a reminder that everything that's kind of being offered today is an invitation. So really take what's useful, leave what isn't, and that's totally fine. And as people arrive, and I think we've got a few more in the lobby, but if it's okay, in the chat, if you can just say your name, where you're joining us from, where you are right now, and if you'd like your organization, but that's optional. And one thing that helps you be well during winters. This can be something that brings relief, something that brings comfort or joy. So we'll know, we'll have a sense of who's in the room with us, and then we can begin with our information sessions. This is where I find out how many of you are actually listening to me as well. Oh, thanks for sharing that. Yeah, hot chocolate. Welcome, Vaska. Hello, Alice. Hello, Sarah. Thank you. You're also very welcome to use the chat throughout the session to kind of just share thoughts, reflections, or any resources that might be coming to mind. But thank you again for being here, and I'm going to hand it to Brooke to just introduce our speakers for today.
Hi everyone, so I'm Brooke. Hopefully you can hear me, I'm in the same room as Mansi. So we've got three amazing speakers today, and I will introduce them. So we've got Sarah Podmore from Public Health up first, then we've got Wendy Robinson from one of our partner organisations, Rethink Mental Illness, and then we have Alice Clements from Sussex Partnership Foundation Trust. So we'll start off with a session from Sarah Podmore. As I say, Sarah works for Public Health in Brighton Hove for Brighton Hove City Council. And she's going to talk to us today about energy, food and cost of living support, and also introduce one of their new leaflets. So I'll hand over to you, please, Sarah.
Thank you so much, Brooke, and thank you for that lovely start to the session. That was really nice. So yes, I'm Sarah. I'm a health promotion specialist based in the public health team at Brighton Hove City Council. Thank you very much for having me here. It's really nice to see you all. And I didn't get a chance to put in the chat, I guess. For me, keeping well in the winter is making sure I get natural daylight when it's available. That's really important. Um, so yeah, moving on to why I'm here. So in November, I put together a guide which is primarily for workers and professionals who are supporting people in the community, and it's around food, energy, and cost of living services. So I'm going to take you through that guide. That's cascaded via email, and it's people are able to print it out. So the feedback we've had is that it's been quite useful, which is great. So I'll walk you through that. And then we also have a public guide that Public Health put together in November, December time. It's got a sort of soft focus on older people, but it's a range of support that is available for people to keep well during the winter. Sorry, was there a comment or a question then? Okay, let's carry on. So I'll start with sharing the guide that was circulated to workers before Christmas. And can somebody let me know if you can see that okay? If I zoom out a little bit. Brooke, I can see you currently. Can you give me a nod if that's okay? Yeah, great. Okay. So if I scroll down, we'll start with just a little bit of information initially around people who are at increased risk of health issues during cold weather and the winter, just so that we know the people and the groups that need a little bit of extra support potentially. So people aged 65 plus, young children and babies, people who are pregnant, people particularly who have any heart or circulatory conditions or any respiratory conditions relating to lungs, particularly COPD and childhood asthma, people with mental health conditions, people with disabilities, learning difficulties or cognitive impairment, people at risk of falls, and people with lower income for their households. There are many reasons for the increased risk of ill health in cold weather for these different groups, and these include housing conditions. So if people are living in cold or damp or mouldy housing, this can have a significant impact on people's health. If people are living in a cold environment, it can, for a prolonged period of time, it can actually increase blood pressure. So that puts people at greater risk of heart attacks and strokes. So that's something to be mindful of. Obviously, there's a higher rate of diseases circulating during the winter, such as flu and COVID. And there are also physical hazards, such as snow and ice. And then also, when the pavements are wet, that's another hazard as well. So that's the background on why we want to provide some extra support during the winter. And so I'll move on now to just talk you through the services that are available. Starting with Brighton and Hove City Council, and there's a community hub available, and particularly this winter they've got extra support available for people aged 66 and over who are struggling with costs. And there's a range of support that the community hub can provide around checking benefits and credits that people are eligible for, supporting with costs of energy and food. They can provide free carbon monoxide alarms, checking eligibility for the Priority Services Register and other advice and support. So that's a sort of one-stop shop, and the information on contacting them is there on the page. And then also there's the local discretionary social fund, and this is available for people who are eligible for benefits and are struggling to pay for food and other essential costs. And the service, it doesn't provide cash, but it can offer vouchers, and the information on accessing that service is also there. Moving on to family hubs. This is a support service across Brighton and Hove that supports children and families with children from 0 to 19, as well as young people with special educational needs. And this service is available for drop-in, as well as to contact via the email and phone number available. There's 4 hubs across Brighton and Hove, and there's more information on the links there. What I'll do is pause after each section and see if there are any questions as we go through. And so just to complete the section on Brighton and Hove Council, we've got further support listed through our cost of living support pages. And there's also a directory online that lists indoor activities and warm places that people can go during cold weather. So that's the council information, the overview. Are there any comments or questions at the moment? If not, we'll carry on down. So we've got an energy section. Energy Works is our local partnership project providing energy support and advice for people who are struggling particularly with cold homes and who may be in fuel poverty. So this is a partnership project between Citizens Advice in Brighton and Hove and Brighton and Hove Energy Services Cooperative, who are known as BESCO locally. So this is a great service. They've got good capacity at the moment, and they provide advice and support on reducing energy bills and making your home warmer. They can support with supply negotiations, they can provide income and financial support. They can also offer, BESCO will go out and visit somebody's home and they can bring free energy saving kits such as energy saving light bulbs and draft proofing and fit that for you, make onwards referrals, and they also have fuel vouchers available to top up people's prepayment meters. So there's a range of options there around getting in touch with Energy Works, and I would really encourage anybody who is struggling with affording their energy or living in a cold home or is working with someone who is to contact Energy Works. They're a great local service who are very supportive. A similar service available also is Leap. They're a nationally provided service, but we've partnered with them in Brighton and Hove, so they have a local advisor available. They offer a very similar service to Energy Works. They can expand their capacity in years where it's busier more easily than Energy Works. At the moment, because Energy Works has good capacity, I would say go for them first. And if they start struggling with capacity, then we'll go for Leap. And in terms of national support for energy bills, there's a raft of information on the government's web pages around energy bills, cost of living. Ofgem has a range of information. And then just to highlight here, the Priority Services Register is very useful. They have a one-stop or kind of one point of access on their website down here. And if people sign up, it will alert utility companies to the fact that somebody might need some extra support in the case of a power cut or a problem with any utility supply. So that's a useful service. And if you go to that Priority Services website, you'll be guided through just to sign up once, and then notifications should go out to all your utility suppliers. And then if you have some extra needs or health concerns, there's a whole range of different issues that they're happy to support with. You should be prioritised for their support in the event of any sort of power cut or supply interruption. Any questions or comments around the energy section? And if not, I'll move on to food. So we have the Brighton and Hove Food Partnership available, providing a whole range of affordable food projects, free and cheap meals, and there are 3 community fridges in Brighton as well for people who may be struggling with affording food and need some affordable options. They have a winter guide, but that took us to the end of January. So we're almost at the end of January now, which is great news, isn't it? And if we scroll on down, we've got impact initiatives available in the city as well. And they now run the food access service for residents in Brighton and Hove aged 18 plus. And they can provide information on local food initiatives. They're the place to go for referrals to food banks. And if anybody needs emergency support on the day, if there's a really urgent situation where somebody needs food today, go to Impact Initiatives Food Access Service, and their details are there. And then we've got some information on free school meals and Healthy Start vouchers. Please let me know if there are any questions on the food section. Otherwise, I'll guide you through briefly the water, money and home safety. So Citizens Advice, again, run an advice and financial inclusion partnership, which is a partnership of many local organisations in the city who offer advice and support around money and finances. So they can be contacted through those details. If it's primarily a difficulty around energy and cold homes, then you can contact Energy Works, but you'll be linked through across each service as needed. This is useful information on Southern Water. They've got several different web pages around support with paying water bills. There's a social tariff available for people on benefits, so that's worth looking into. And the Priority Services Register again, but I would recommend going to the National Priority Services Register page, which should sign people up for support with all of their utility providers. We also have the East Sussex Fire and Rescue Service, and they offer home safety visits to support people to keep warm and safe in their homes. They can support around falls and accident prevention. They can support with escape route planning, fitting free smoke alarms, and other support. So that's a useful service for anybody who might need a bit of extra support at home. As well as that, they offer training sessions and a range of other support available on their website. And now we're coming to the end of this guide. So we've got some key national resources listed here, and these are probably what I feel are the most useful national web pages around keeping warm and well and safe during the winter. So we've got the key NHS page, the UK Health Security Agency page with lots of information. The Met Office page has got a specific focus around keeping your home warm in the winter. And then cost of living pages available from the government. Age UK's pages are packed full of useful information, as are the Energy Saving Trust pages. So that's the guide that I created before Christmas. Let me stop sharing that. That was cascaded by email to workers across the city. I hope many of you on the call received that. If you'd like it, please contact me or Brooke. We can forward it on email. You're very welcome to print copies of that. And as I say, that's aimed at as a reference guide for workers. As well as that, the public health team created a public leaflet, which I'll just pop on the screen for you. And who can I say? Brooke, could you give me a nod if that looks okay? Yeah, great. So this was designed to go out to members of the public. As I mentioned before, it had a sort of soft focus on older people because there's increased risk around health and well-being as you age. But this has got quite a lot of information from the guide around staying warm and well. And I suppose just to highlight for people the temperature, the home temperature that we should be aiming for is at least 18 degrees to maintain good health and well-being. So that reduces health risk if you keep the rooms that you spend most of your time in to at least 18 degrees, preferably a bit warmer. And that's particularly important for people who have health conditions or disabilities or struggle to move around. So it's great to sort of wear lots of layers and use electric blankets, but if it's possible, it's really important to keep your home environment, the air that you're breathing and the atmosphere that you're living in, to at least 18 degrees if you've got vulnerabilities. And there are ways to do that which are more affordable, such as just heating the room that you're spending your time in and that sort of thing. And you can get more sort of advice and support around doing that if needed from Energy Works. And there's some tips here around wearing layers of clothes and a particular tip around closing bedroom windows at night, which not everybody knows to do, but it's important when the weather's particularly cold, and especially if you've got health conditions, that you're not breathing in cold air during the night. So close your windows. We've got some information on Energy Works and Leap here. So quite a bit of this is repeated from the guide. We've got some extra information on vaccines. Hopefully everybody's got their vaccinations, their flu and COVID vaccinations already. If not, COVID vaccines are still available just until Saturday. So if you haven't had a COVID vaccine and you're eligible, so eligibility this winter is people aged 75 plus and eligible health conditions. Or the flu vaccine, I would urge everybody to get those in if you haven't yet. Oh, sorry, I've got a couple of notifications. I'll just move those out the way. There's some information here on Care Plus. I've got my voice echoing back to me from, oh, I'm not sure how that's happening.
It should be
It has
fine
stopped
now.
now. Okay, it's stopped now. Thank you, Brill. We have some information here on CareLink Plus. And this is particularly useful if people want to make healthy changes. We've got the Healthy Lifestyles team available in public health, who can support people around making healthy changes, stopping smoking, and provide information around losing weight, healthy eating, getting active. So this service can provide a kind of triaging for people and make referrals onwards to our various health and wellbeing, health improvement services in the city. So there's contact information there. We've got a QR code on the leaflet as well, and that links to a council webpage with a summary of all this information. And the last page is around further support. We've got the information around adult social care and access points. As mentioned earlier, we've got the East Sussex Fire and Rescue Service available. Aging Well are a great service in Brighton and Hove provided by Impact Initiatives for people aged 50 plus. The health advice available is linked there. Of course, mental health support available from UOK. And then if anybody needs support around drinking or using drugs, the information for the organisation that can support with this is there. They're called Change, Grow, Live, and their details are there as well. So that's, let me just find you all again so I can see some faces. So that leaflet was printed 5,000 times along with a poster that went with it. That was 250 copies of the poster, and that was distributed to many organisations before Christmas. We have got some copies left, so if anybody would like copies of that leaflet to give out to people that they're working with, then please contact me and we can arrange that. Alternatively, if you'd prefer to print it yourself, we can email over an electronic copy. So I hope that was useful. And are there any kind of questions or comments that anybody would like to share? We got one from Pat. Would you like to unmute? Or can we do that for you?
Oh, there we are.
Bro,
yeah,
bro.
I think I've signed in twice because I'm getting double speech.
Oh, yeah,
So I don't know what to do about that. What I wanted to say is this is all very interesting. And will we get the slides? Thank you.
Absolutely, and I can share the guides and the leaflet that can be shared afterwards as well, for sure.
Absolutely.
Do we have a question from Colleen?
Hi there. Yeah, thanks very much for the presentation. That's very interesting. I just wanted to know for people that own their own homes, does it affect them? Can they still access these services? Is it means tested? Is there a criteria? You know, how does that work?
Each of the services will have different access criteria. For people that own their homes, they're absolutely able to access Energy Works and Leap, for example, but it would be specific to each service. So we'd have to, if you've got a question on a particular service, I'm happy if you wanted to email me and I could, we could have a look at that afterwards.
Yeah, lovely. Could you possibly put your email address in the chat? Is that okay? Yeah, that'd be lovely. Thank you, Sarah.
Sure. Pax.
Hello, I just wanted a comment really to say thank you so much for presenting. That was really useful because there were some services there that I hadn't even heard of, and we work in the same team. So that was a really useful overview, and I'll be sharing that again wider with my mental health networks as well. So thanks so much, Sarah.
Thank you, Pax. Brilliant. Hi, Claire.
Hi, Sarah. Thank you for all of that information. We have had lots of those leaflets which we've been giving out at various events and to groups and stuff. So thank you for providing us with all of that. I just wanted to check, are some of these services ending at the end of March, just to kind of give people who are supporting people a bit of a, if people need it, do it now?
Thank you for flagging that, because I had intended to mention while I was covering so the council's sort of offer around Community Hub and the local discretionary social fund is changing
Yes.
from April onwards, and something called the Crisis Resilience Fund will be replacing the Household Support Fund. So it's happening on a national level. This is coming from national government, and it does mean that the support that the council is able to provide will be changing. I've got some more information on that. I don't want to run over time too much, so I don't know how best to share that information. Because I'm aware we've got other speakers.
Yeah, maybe
lined up.
via Brooke can send it out to the partnership.
Yeah, I can send it out. Yeah, that's fine.
Perfect.
Everything will be collated and we'll send it all out in full.
Yeah, I just thought it was important to flag because there will be changes and things might not be the same. And, you know, if you are supporting people that need access to stuff, do it before the end of March.
Absolutely. Thank you, Claire. That's
Yeah.
something that I meant to
Thanks,
mention.
Sarah.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sarah. That was extremely useful. Lots and lots of services there. We're extremely fortunate to have such a proactive public health team in Brighton Hove and West Sussex. So thank you very much for coming on today.
Thank you, and very fortunate in Brighton Hove to have our amazing community and voluntary sector organisations is what I was going to say. So yeah.
Thank you.
Many of which are on the call, which is fantastic. So thank you. So I'll just share the presentation again. So next up, we have the lovely Wendy from Rethink Mental Illness, one of our partners. She's here to talk to us today about carer self-care and wellbeing during winter and to share a really important case study from the service. So I'll pass over to you if that's okay, Wendy.
Thanks very much. We'll go on to the next slide. My name is Wendy. I'm from Rethink, but I'm part of the UOK organisations and social network. I manage two services. One is the Survivors of Suicide service, and we provide any adult who has been impacted by suicide, i.e. thoughts, attempts or bereavement, with one-to-one support or bereavement by suicide group support. I also have another contract which is an across Sussex early intervention initiative for those who have sadly just lost someone they've known to suicide. And so that's my background. That's where the case study is going to come from. So if there is anything that's upsetting that I am saying or triggering, please do speak with me afterwards. I'll put my email up and telephone number, and if there was something that is affecting, then do. But hopefully this will be quite a positive presentation as well. But I will lay the background to it. Okay, next slide. I just wanted to acknowledge that carers' wellbeing is not just for one season, but even the World Health Organization has international considerations and thoughts about winter in particular around the world, and also therefore policies and ideas come to us nationally and then locally. And I think there's been a real local drive across Sussex and particularly Brighton and Hove to address how we can support people throughout the winter who are very vulnerable. And also actually the World Health Organization talked about how those caring for either in professional unpaid carers are also being supported. And I think it's about trying to get the right access at the right time and getting the information we need. Okay, next. So the case study example is someone who actually used our service. It was just after COVID. So you can imagine that there were additional issues around the fact that they had been at home for a significant amount of time. And this is a case about a couple who were in their late 60s and 70s and had known each other since teenagers and been married for decades and have a large family. And they came to our service, and I'll refer to them as X. They had growing thoughts of suicide, and which was aggravated by their no depression or anxiety during the winter period. They came because they wanted to speak to someone neutral and they wanted space, just a space, which they hadn't felt they had. They stated that winter posed particular issues around the fact they were being cooped up, is how they described it, and was increasingly feeling resentful towards their partner because they couldn't get the space they needed for themselves, and actually their partner couldn't get space from them either, and so they were bickering a bit more. And also so the first thing that we had to do as a service was to establish X's position in terms of whether she had plans, or whether she was already in crisis, or whether there was something we could put in place, like speak to her, have her speak to her GP about what's going on for her at home, and also maybe a meds review that she hadn't had for some time. And so while she was with us, we made the call to the GP, and I also emailed the practice as well at the same time. So by the time the session had first session had finished, she had an appointment, a telephone appointment later that afternoon with their doctor. I know that doesn't always happen. I appreciate that. And also I do appreciate that with this case study, there's an awful lot I'm missing out. And this is just one example. It's just an actual example, but I know everyone's carer's situation and physical and mental health issues are different. So this was the presenting that they were feeling that they couldn't communicate. So if we go on to the next slide. And so part of the reflection reviewing that they were doing, and I say reviewing because those of you who may know people who, or yourself in long-term caring situation, you kind of get into a routine, either knowingly or unknowingly, either to create space or to kind of make it as convenient to you both as possible because there's other things to do. And also you get into kind of an unconscious discussion, which is all about caring, and forget that actually you had a different relationship which wasn't around caring before. So, for example, if your day with each other is around, or got to make your breakfast and you have your meds, and then you make your lunch, and that's the only time you kind of interact, that's about one doing to the other. So in the sessions with me, and this wasn't just all in one session, I mean, we worked together for about a year and a half, 2 years, and they said that they began to talk honestly with their partner, that they wanted to talk to them outside of those times that they were doing for each other. So they did set a time weekly, and it wasn't easy, and it took a number of attempts for them to kind of hear each other, and they identified how they were treating each other. They admitted it was hard, and I know that you wondered, oh, was there any domestic violence issues here? This wasn't the case for this. This was just a breakdown of how people who had been caring for each other for over a decade were now just speaking with each other on a day-to-day basis. And they admitted that it was hard to remember that they had been together for a very long time, and that they'd been through an awful lot, and they had a lot in common. And they identified their day-to-day language that they used with each other and the habits that had unknowingly and knowingly formed. And they discussed individual need. They talked about prevention and actually admitting that each other couldn't always help each other because they were struggling. And I think that takes a lot, you know. I think people carry obligation or that we must do this, or this. In actual fact, we have to do it. There isn't any choice. But people walk around exhausted, and so they had tried to carve some space over the coming months around talking about their individual need. And actually, the one thing that they both identified is that neither felt needed by the other. So the person that was being cared for, who had to stop work because of a physical health issue, they felt, and they used to do everything, all the decorating and all of you know, the odd jobs and that. They wanted that list back. They wanted to feel needed, that they could be helpful around the house, even though they were being predominantly looked after. and the other person wanted to stop doing everything but had done it to try and save time because they were also stretched with what they were trying to do and what they could manage. So then the time that they had left, they preferred not to be in each other's company, but there's only a couple of rooms. So there's the kitchen and the living room. And in the summer, they had the garden and such, but that's harder in the winter. They identified in particular, which Sarah's already pressed upon, was that the fact that there wasn't the daylight during the day, and so one of the things that they changed was that as soon as it was daylight, they opened the curtains for as long as they could. And if they could go out into the garden, even with an umbrella, and it was, it wasn't going to give them chills, they could do stuff like that too. They discussed the seasonal changes and what they missed about hanging out with each other, enjoying each other's time, which is what they used to do before there was an accident and their life changed. And they gave time for changes because when you've been in a long-term caring situation, you get used to a day-to-day organisation, if you like. You kind of know what time you're doing lunch, you know what time the appointments are, all of that. And that's the language speak that seems to predominate. But they really tried things. And by the way, it had to be something that they felt would fit them. So they had to do that reviewing and that trying and erroring and that sort of thing, so that they had that balance of helping each other out when they could and doing the absolute necessary, but also looking at what they could do for each other, for themselves as well. So they also planned occasional dates. And I know this sounds very idealistic or anything, but actually they hadn't had time where they went off together for many years. So actually this was quite a big deal. And even just, I remember the first time that X came to our office, it was their first time come to see us. It took incredible guts to do that, to talk about something that was quite personal. And I think we never stop remembering that. But they did most of the work. They just used this space to figure out and then to talk through with their partner. Now, I know there are carers out there or those being careful saying, well, our situation's different, but I'm just saying what happened here. And if we go on to the next slide, this is one of the things they reflected with me before they left the service. And so one of the things is, don't ever forget what makes you you. Make quality time for yourself and your loved one. And just know that you can't always be the one that works things out. Sometimes you need other services or other support or other family members or friends and so forth. And look at what you can do. You can have small wins, like, just something around the house that you might want to rearrange, or something that you both have wanted to watch on TV. It can be the smallest of things that you do together, which isn't about one being a carer and one being cared for. It's about building that bridge together. And it's okay to say that what you can do on any given day, we're not the same every day. And I know that there's a load of people going around exhausted, absolutely exhausted, because actually things don't change or are not going to change. But actually, it's important to try and remember that you matter. And I think I alluded to this earlier, pull in local resources and other family or friends to assist, that you can have some time away guilt-free. And I think there is a lot of stuff that people carry which affects their emotional health and physical health. Open dialogue about your relationship, even if it's seasonally or however, it's talking to each other without the roles, if you understand what I'm saying. And they said they found that really useful. And what they really found hard about the winter, as I alluded to, was the fact that the days daylight was shorter, that it was colder, and that everything that Sarah said in terms of the practical, have I got enough for heating? Have I got enough for how can I go to the shops when I'm feeling like this? And I think it's having those regular support with your GP as well, who can also signpost, though we're also trying to keep the pressure off their GPs as well. But I know my colleagues afterwards are, I've left an awful lot out. I understand that, but I hope this did shift things for them, and they are respecting each other a bit more. Their situation isn't changing as of a lot of carers and cared for, but they are reviewing every now and again how it is for each other, and that's out of respect. Okay, I'll take any questions, but thanks ever so much. And my colleague next is going to give more signposting and that sort of thing. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that, Wendy. I think because of time, we'll take questions at the end, if that's okay.
Sure.
Or we can put them in the chat and we'll respond afterwards, just because we want an hour time. But thank you so much. I think that actually can really mean something for people who are just in a relationship or cohabiting. You don't necessarily have to be, and there's some really good tips there. So thank you so much, Wendy. That was extremely helpful. Right, lovely. So we'll move on to hear from Alice now. So Alice is from Sussex Partnership NHS Foundation Trust. She's here to talk to us about the How Are You Really Feeling campaign that's Sussex-wide. So I'll pass over to Alice, if that's okay.
Thanks, Brooke. And thanks, Brooke and Mansi, for inviting me. It's so lovely to see so many familiar faces. For those who I don't know, Brooke's just introduced. So I work at the Sussex Partnership NHS Foundation Trust in their comms team, but I'm also part of a Sussex-wide comms group that's looking at mental health information to make it more consistent across Sussex, across the system, more inclusive, and so that's what I'm here to talk about today. And there's quite a few people on this call who I know are involved in that group as well. So do chip in. So yes, the Sussex Mental Health Signposting resource is called How Are You Really Feeling? It's been in development for the past couple of years, and it's pan Sussex and system-wide as well. So it's not just NHS that's been working on this. We've been working with our voluntary sector partners, local authorities, people with lived experience, just to really make this resource useful, relevant, and accurate. So as I say, it's been in the development for the past couple of years, and we launched it late 2024 with a campaign with that header, How Are You Really Feeling? So this resource is centered on signposting people to how they're feeling rather than lots of names of services. We know there's loads of different providers across Sussex doing lots of different things. People have told us that it was really kind of difficult to find support that was right for them in the right place. So this kind of the insight that we gathered from kind of surveys and questionnaires really kind of supported the development of the resource. We did another survey just this year, actually last year. I forgot we've moved into 2026. And some of the results from that survey started to show that this resource is having some positive impact. So there was a 6% increase in people saying that it's easier to find mental health support. So that is quite a low number, but it's just really encouraging to see that we're starting to see the shoots of, positive kind of impact of this kind of consistent signposting mental health resource. And then we also saw a reduction in people using those kind of 999 and A&E that we know aren't the right places for people to go to and can be quite distressing. So by kind of promoting the range of support that's out there, and people have got choice and can go to the place that is right for them depending on how they're feeling. So last year, we also updated that resource to make it more accessible. So in particular to people who are neurodivergent, digitally excluded, and those who feel less confident using English. So we've got an updated campaign toolkit that's been shared with quite a few organisations. Probably lots of people who are on this call as well have received that. And we've got printed materials, including kind of translations in 5 key languages, that we looked at the demographics of Brighton and Hove, East Sussex and West Sussex. So those translations in Arabic, Farsi, Bengali, Polish and Ukrainian. So they've been produced. So that's a bit of a background context on the resource. Can you go to the next slide, Brooke or Mansi? So the next 3 slides are just to show you some graphics. just to give you a sense of what the resource is. So the How Are You Really Feeling Sussex .nhs.uk is a web link that you can access the resource online, and there's lots of downloadable resources. Just to say, this information is also, as I said, been shared with our partners across Sussex, so they've uploaded the information to their websites as well. So the hope is that if people type in how you're really feeling, that they would land on consistent information about mental health support across Sussex. Next slide, please. And these are just some screen grabs from a Brighton specific leaflet that's been developed. So we've got leaflets for West Sussex, Brighton and Hove, and East Sussex, tailored to the local support that's available, but also making sure there's consistent language across the piece. So it's probably too small for you to read now, but it really kind of groups the kind of the support in some headings. So if you need help now or today or tomorrow, you need crisis support, then it lists how you can get that. And then if you're feeling stressed, anxious, or not sure what kind of support you need, then it lists things like talking therapies, UOK, and the Carers Centre. And then as Wendy and Sarah mentioned, there's lots of other kind of areas that impact on people's mental health. So just signposting to things like welfare benefits, housing advice, and that information, fortunately, really tallies with the leaflet that Sarah's developed as well. So that's yeah, just brilliant to see that joined up kind of working. Next slide, please. Just a couple of kind of graphics just to show you some examples of the translated posters. So in Arabic and Bengali here, but all of these downloads of leaflets, posters, digital screens are all available to download from the Sussex Partnership website. You can go to the next slide, and then it's got some links that might be useful for people. So as I say, you've got the web link there that you can actually see the resource, and it's got the link to the partner toolkit and all of the downloads, whether you want print ready versions or digital versions, translated English, they're there. If you want printed copies, we've got a whole batch at the Sussex Partnership office in Worthing, so I can post you some out, so whether that be the English version or the translated. So there's an email address there. If you just drop us an email with the area that you work in and whether you want translated versions or English versions, then I can pop some out. I know UOK have got a batch also, and just to say, coming soon, that will be, so you might have heard of something called neighbourhood mental health teams. So that messaging will be integrated into the mental health signposting information very soon. I'm going to stop there. I can see Pat's got her hand up. Hi, Pat. How you doing? Oh, you're on mute. Oh, still on mute? Don't know. Possibly pop it into the chat if it's.
Yeah. I'm trying to see. I can't unmute. Sorry, Pat, we can't hear you. But if you wanted to put something in the chat, and I can read that out for you.
Sarah.
Go on.
Everyone go to Sarah and come back to Pat.
Hi, thank you. That was great and really useful to hear about your work and the campaign. And I just wanted to mention, actually, I did put in the chat, but I just think the graphics are really powerful. It's, I think it really demonstrates how often people sort of mask or conceal how they're feeling inside, and just to see it sort of demonstrated in that way is, yeah, I think it's quite powerful.
Oh, thanks for the feedback, Sarah. We did an awful lot of work with people with lived experience to develop the graphics, and so they've gone through another iteration since they were first designed back in 2024, particularly with insights from people with who are neurodivergent. So the colours are much more muted. Looked at the emojis and made sure that they had a bit more resonance with how people were with feelings, with emotions, and they don't work for everyone, but we hope the language, the messaging alongside the visuals works for most people, and we'll continue to develop the resource, from people's feedback, from insights. So we know there's much more to be done, but it's a great start.
And I think it conveys the sort of weight of having to carry around those internal feelings as well. So yeah, it's quite effective.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that, Alice. It's a fantastic campaign, and UOK have been involved in it. And yeah, it's all across Sussex. So yeah, just making it much simpler for people to find what they need when they need it, which is obviously great for prevention. So thank you very much for sharing, Alice. Great. We'll move over to talk. I'll pass over to Nancy to talk about some wellbeing tips. So she's created a fantastic resource that we're going to be printing and sharing with our community. So I'll let Nancy talk about that. So I'll pass over to you, if that's okay.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. It's me again. And we won't take too much time with this, but just to share. Are you able to see my screen? You see the winter big amazing. So what we did was we went out to our group with lived experience and said, like I asked in the beginning of the seminar, say like, what is something that helps you stay well during winters? And then all the responses that we got, we said, can we put this together into one resource? Because we've just heard about 3 fantastic resources about where to reach out for support. But sometimes if you're just by yourself, what can we reach out to inside of us that can still feel like support? And on the next 2 pages, we've got all the well-being tips from them. So it's everything from staying emotionally well to socially connected. And these all kind of, they say like all well-being is connected, isn't it? If I feel mentally well, it's connected to me feeling physically well. So these are all the insights that we gathered from our community, and then also talking to people who support the community. So a bit of both. And there's really small things, like just stepping outside and noticing 5 things that you can see or hear. Making a warm drink quite slowly and mindfully. And we found that also just holding a cup, like a warm drink, just holding it in your hands can also make you feel significantly better. These are all small things, but I think collectively they kind of add up. Then for those dealing with seasonal affective disorder, there's a lot around just noticing light, and this can be natural daylight, this can be a warm lampshade in your room, it can also just be reflections. And then this stuff around mindfulness, movement, doing something nice for somebody else. And again, these are all things you can do in support of well-being. These might not help kind of shift the mood significantly, but sometimes we just need to reach out within ourselves and say, right, what is like one very small thing I can do right now? And these are kind of aimed at that. Just moving on to the next one, there's things around comfort and ease and support that feels human, which is why when we hear from others what helps them, it can spark something inside and say, well, right, actually, let me try that. And we've got some additional resources. I think resources kind of like the highlight of this webinar really, but you're going to be flooded with plenty of them after as well. But these are some additional resources, specific ones around cost of living, and I mean, Sarah's covered most of them, but the idea just to say, well, reach out to support. And then in the end, we have made a little winter well-being checklist, and this is something that's come up in the lived experience group, as well as when they said it, I also like noticed so much resonance in it, and maybe we can do it together now as well, as in today, since morning when I got up, have I done anything that brought me a sense of comfort? Have I noticed the light? Have I moved my body? Now this can just be traveling from your living room to wherever, to your bedroom to living room. Sometimes that's all we move, and that's okay. Have I eaten something? Have I connected with someone? Have I done something? This can also, I've realized, like doodling while you're in a meeting. If that can be something creative. It doesn't have to be something we go out of our way to do. Have I allowed some rest? And have I remembered that it's okay if winter feels harder? So and we're going to have copies of this kind of printed out. So please do say if you'd like a few sent over to you, and we'll obviously have the PDF sent out as well. but that is around well-being and what we're kind of helping to do in the community. I'm aware that it's 101, so I will stop now and pass it back to Brooke to kind of bring it all together. But thank you once again. Over to you.
Lovely. Thank you so much for sharing that, Nancy. It's a fantastic resource. Really giving some down-to-earth tips, and that's, as Nancy said, being created with people with lived experience from our lived experience advisory group that we have integrated into the Brighton Hove UOK partnership. So thank you very much for sharing. And we'll come to a close. So thank you so much for everyone attending today. Thank you so much to our speakers. It's been brilliant to hear from you. I've got some fantastic tips. I'm sure people are sort of overwhelmed with all of the amazing things they've got to take away. And I'm going to collate all of this into an email. I'll send it around to everyone who's attended. And we'll also put an article on our website, as we normally do with these webinars, with a link to the webinar recording, and all of the resources will be on that page as well. So please do access that. And thank you very much for coming, everyone. We hope you have a lovely rest of your winter. We've not got too long to go. Sometimes these are the toughest months, but we'll get through it together. And yeah, we're brilliant nearly here. So hope you all have a lovely rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you. That was great.
Yeah.
Hello? Is anyone there?